So I'm going to talk a lot while we're right here, and then we'll walk through the entire farm. So the first principle is disturb the soil as little as possible. I mean, can you imagine taking a tractor in through this area here? It's like, it's sort of a cacophony, but so is Mother Nature, right? There's a lot of things going on. The second one, have as many green photosynthesizing plants in the ground as often as possible, right? The cacophony, right? Yeah. You want that photosynthesis to be happening so that those plants are capturing that carbon, they're creating glucose, they're resynthesizing that glucose into more complicated carbon-based products, and then they're pushing that out through their roots. They push out anywhere between 20 to 60% of the products of photosynthesis, those carbon-based products, to feed the soil biology. So initially feeding the bacteria and the fungi, but then that sort of starts up the entire soil food web, right? Which then, supports the plants, and that's why they do it. They don't do it to, fight climate change for us silly humans that have, put too much carbon up there, right? So as many green photosynthesizing plants as possible, a diversity of plants, right? You happen to see a lot of tomatoes in this field here. That's because it's our highest and therefore our warmest field. But, we've got a lot of other things going, and I would never want to grow, an acre of brassicas followed by an acre of brassicas. We're wanting to move things around. Every one of our beds gets anywhere from 3 to 8 different successions over the course of the year. And that doesn't include interplanting, which I'm going to discuss in just a second here.
Can you explain exactly what you mean by that?
Yeah. So, right now we've got tomatoes. Come October, we're going to have a frost and those tomatoes are going to die. We're going to cut those out and we'll put in a quick crop. Something like maybe some bok choy or an apple cabbage or something like that. That will come out November or December. We might not have anything for a minute. They might get black covered, and then they might get like an early brassica or something like that, which would take them to about the time when the tomatoes were planted here. So 3 different crops, and I'm using tomatoes as a really long crop. They go in the ground in mid-March and they're going to come out in mid-October potentially, right?
Right. I know the tomatoes.
Yeah. Another long crop might be Brussels sprouts. Might be garlic or something like that, but more often we have, or some kales. Some of our kales will stay in the ground a good 8 plus months. But if you have just shorter crops, like you have a broccoli and then you have a lettuce and then you have a bok choy and then you have some sunflowers, you can get quite a few in there. Okay, so diversity of crops, keeping the soil covered. Just like tillage is bad, barren exposed soil is bad, right? Because you're not feeding the soil. It is off-gassing, and also that barren exposed soil, like these beds were just planted yesterday. I see a lot of barren exposed soil, but it's a temporary thing. These are cabbage plants here. So at night they're going to get colder. During the day they're going to get hotter. We're going to water them. They're going to get super wet. Then they're going to dry out. So we're really looking for our vegetable plants homeostasis. They don't want it super windy. They don't want it super hot. They don't want it super dry. Just like us, we don't want that. So we got to treat them like that. They don't have legs that they can walk over to the shady corner. Okay. And then the 5th principle is incorporating animals. You did see we have goats, but I'm not bringing the goats out to pasture over here. When I talk about incorporating animals, I'm talking about manure, first of all, but then which we'll bring in through our compost, which we'll also go to the composting area and talk about that. So hold compost questions, please. But also the livestock underground. Like, what can we do to help the biology underground? And I really see that as a large part of the animals on our farm, but also the beneficial insects, the birds, the lizards, the snakes, all of those animals. So I want to take our attention to this bed here, because I think a good intercropped bed, we can talk about a lot of those principles and sort of see what's happening. Come down the rows.
Before you continue, I got in your principles, I got disturb the soil as little as possible, have as many green photosynthesizing plants, blah, blah, blah. Keep soil covered. Are you calling that a separate principle from number 2?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's number 4?
The keep the soil is
number 3.
Is number 4. A diversity of plants.
Okay, diversity is another one.
And then animals. And there is a page on our website that is dedicated to the principles of soil management, and there's some really cool videos and things like that on there too.
They are great. That is a wonderful website.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, what do we see here?
Interplanting
Of what?
lettuce and brassica.
Yeah, that's a Brussels sprout.
Okay.
It's hard to tell. Sometimes
Yeah.
I can't tell the difference if I wasn't, if I don't know, I'm like, is that a cauliflower or broccoli? So these are very large plants. And so the spacing on them is 2 lines every 24 inches. I will tell you real quick, because you guys are astute gardeners, we have our drip line is essential for us. And you can see they're planted right along the drip line. And not only that, you should see that every of the brassica, every of these is right on a dripper. It should be, at least, if we did our job right. Now our drip lines have holes every 12 inches.
I was going to say 12 inches.
So guess what? Hey crew, go plant this Brussels sprout every 24 inches. They don't have to measure anything. They just use the drip line as their tape, which is really, if you guys have planted and tried to be like, 3 lines at 9 and 4 lines at, whatever, it can get really confusing. So we have created all of our plant spacings to be such that every plant, at least on the outer row, is within 3 inches of the emitter. Not so much on the inner row for a couple of reasons, because it's got 2 drip lines, right? So it's getting, more water, but it's also got the shading of the plants on the outside. Okay, so that was a little deviation from our topic, but I thought you guys might appreciate
You
that.
said each plant on the outer row what?
Is within 3 inches of a drip hole.
So I'm seeing that your, looks like little gems on the outside
Yep,
are not directly on top of an emitter, and they seem to be doing great.
it's true. They are. Yeah. They are doing well. So we'll try. But it also, hopefully they're about 3 inches.
Yeah.
They ideally should be within 3 inches on that. Because if we do little gems only, it's going to be 4 lines every 6. And so then it will be 3 inches before an emitter, 3 inches after emitter, 3 inches before, and so forth. This is a panisse lettuce. We love it. Really big head, little gems on the side. We could have, in prior years, we actually just put 1 panisse out here. One of the things that we found is there's actually when we're looking at intercropping, photosynthetic capture, or the amount of sun that the plants are getting, is sort of the best. Like, that's what we want to make sure we have. Otherwise, we're going to have failures. And you can see there's a lot more sun in the middle than there are between the plants. So we found that by doing this, which is a little more challenging, but it's also great because you've got more different plants in there, it ends up working better. We also could have done just a line of mini romaines down the middle, but twice as many, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we love intercropping brassicas and lettuces. Whenever we intercrop, 95% of the times when we intercrop, they will get planted at the exact same moment. So we'll have trays of both of them out here. They'll get fertilized, they'll be composted. Hold on that, at me telling you about that quite yet. And then we'll go through and plant the longer crop, and then we'll come right through and plant the shorter crops. Then we're going to water it in and take care of it all together. So it's always a longer crop and a shorter crop. And with these, it's about the time when brassicas, and it doesn't matter if it's cauliflowers, sometimes we'll do it with broccolis, not with kohlrabis, Brussels sprouts, definitely Romanesco cauliflowers. They have really wide spacing. It's about the time they start to close canopy that you're able to take the lettuces out, which is sort of perfect because you then got a covered bed, right? Another thing to note is that if we had only planted the Brussels sprouts, we wouldn't have any more than we currently have. This is 100% crop cover, right? So we're just taking that empty space in between and growing another about 60% crop, 50 to 75, depending upon what you have and so forth. So and so that secondary crop is giving you more food. It is photosynthesizing and putting exudates in the ground. It is keeping the weed pressure down. It is keeping the moisture in the soil, all of those things.
Question.
Yeah.
I noticed you're using straw as a ground
Mulch.
cover,
Yeah.
as a mulch in some beds, but not in this bed.
Right. It gets a little tricky with the lettuces.
Just-
One thing we could do is once we harvest out these lettuces, give it a weed and then straw mulch it. And because these are going to go until, these are our earliest ones, so it might be late November when we harvest them. It's got quite a long time. So, and first of all, any other questions about interplanting?
I have a question.
Yes,
Do
please.
you ever interplant strictly with a cover crop that's not for harvest?
Yes,
What do you like to use?
I'm going to show you. In fact, I'll show you quickly, and then I'll show you again later.
Okay.
We're interested in your cover crops.
Yeah. We have done clover, so I'm going to show you 2 different versions of that.
Okay. Crystal
And then
clover.
we use as low as we can, and the lowest one I've found has been Palestinian white.
Isn't that a perennial?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So we just leave it in the ground.
Okay.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Interesting. Good news.
But anyway, so let's talk
Okay,
about
we'll
that when
talk
we're
about
actually
it
looking
later.
at that.
Sorry.
Another one is we've done fava beans.
Okay.
That works best in the springtime. And so say these aren't Brussels sprouts, because I'm not going to be planting that in the spring, but say they're Romanesco cauliflower. What I would do is I would do lines of the fava beans in between. So I would seed it at the same time that we're planting these. And then we actually harvest them as fava shoots. Or you could just chop and drop and use it as a ground cover at that point. But they're actually really tender as shoots. We don't let them get taller, but like sort of 18 inches max. And so there it's sort of both a cover crop as well as can be a food crop if you can get people who want to do that. I have some high-end restaurants that love fava greens, and I try to give my CSA members a few different recipes.
But you don't harvest the beans.
So in order to get the bean, you got to get
Yeah.
yay tall.
I'm familiar.
And at that point, it takes a long time, and almost as long as the Romanesco cauliflower, and then it would be really shading it out.
Yeah.
So this intercropping, that shade aspect, you really have to be thoughtful about. So we stop doing it mid-September, and we don't start doing it until like maybe first or second week of March. I have to look back at my notes.
And is there any other crops that you intercrop?
So tomatoes. So if
Okay.
you just envision the line of tomatoes straight ahead of it, or let's walk back because we're going to walk back anyway.
You don't stake your Brussels sprouts.
We don't. Huh, I haven't ever done that. So if you can envision one of these beds of tomatoes, when you first plant them out, they're little sticks, right? And then especially because you plant them deep, then they're really little sticks.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of barren exposed bed. So we're looking a little bit like for the architecture, like what are the plants? And in that case with the tomatoes, because you've got this little stick, we really want to cover the sides of the bed. So we'll do an entire row of big head lettuce like that. We'll do that variety, or a red butter variety, or a red leaf, curl leaf along the edge. And then we'll actually do either one of those between each tomato. The tomatoes are at 24-inch spacing, so that's pretty easy. Or we'll do 3 little gems. So there we're doing lettuce, and then once we've got the lettuce harvested out, we'll do a good weed of it, and then we'll come in through with a straw mulch. And then we're going to come in with the trellising and so forth. So right now turning off the water so that they will get dry farmed, because they, if you give them too much water, they're a little on the watery tasting. So that's how we manage those. I'm going to show you an intercrop that's with some scallions in just a minute. We've tried a lot of them. We've tried, for instance, and some of them are fails. Like one of the fails was direct seeding carrots and then radishes in between. The radishes shaded out the carrots because they grew so fast. I definitely do baby bok choy in place of mini romaines in some of the places. We don't grow leeks any longer, but we used to do leeks with lettuces and mini romaines in between them. I've done some interesting ones with flowers, like status with onions, and like sweet peas with lettuce on the side, and then sweet peas with stalk. So you just sort of play around with like what's the timing and what's the structure of those plants, thinking about, you know, the sunlight and the timing, I guess. There's a good book that I really recommend. It's by a farmer named Jesse Frost, who's on the East Coast, the Living Soil Handbook, and he has a whole appendix to intercropping and different things. Okay, so this is one example, and it's really weedy, and we're about to take out the kale and cut back the clover. So we trialed, there are a few farms that have been trialing, like, what can we get as an in situ cover crop, green cover over the soil, and then growing in it. And some farms are having some really good luck with clover. So that's why we're trying it. Now, this is a very low growing clover. The gentleman back there in the black puffy is standing on some clover that is the same variety as this one. And which is happier and healthier?
This one.
The one that has irrigation and compost and fertilizer, right? If anybody can find a lower growing clover, I would be thrilled, because it does, one of the things to think about, does impact the plants. I would not do this with lettuce. I would not do this with a cabbage, and things like that. This we actually did where we grew the clover, I know it sounds crazy, in the nursery. We just seeded it when we were seeding other thing, and we plugged it in when we were planting, actually not this kale, but the last fall we planted some kale in here, a different variety. I know you're not supposed to put kale in then kale again, but we figured there was this clover and it's done pretty well. And so we transplanted it all out. One of the problems is, and this bed particularly has a lot of weeds. So we're about to go through, chop out the kale, weed it, and then what we're going to do is weed whack down the clover as low as we can go, and then we're going to prep the bed and plant the next crop into it. Okay. So
Put the weeds in the compost?
we are going to put the weeds in the compost. We'd, however, do a hot compost because they're big enough piles. Yeah, so let's actually talk about transitioning a crop. Because this bed has clover in it, can you envision this bed without clover? Can you do a little imaginative?
Yeah.
So what we would do if we want to transition this out, and let's say we want to put beets in here or something like that, we're going to lop the kale plants at or below the soil level. So if this is the soil level, we don't want to take the roots out. We're going to use big old loppers because these stems are, nice and hefty there. And so I'm going to come, if this is the soil level, and either chop there or chop at an angle slightly below. It does dull your tools. You just have to sharpen and sharpen and sharpen. One of the things with a stem, when we're cutting it, we really like going at a diagonal. We find that we get a lot less regrowth from that. And what I think, but it's just a theory, is that because there's more open surface that desiccates and or is decomposed by organisms, that might be why, but that's just a theory. I have no idea. Okay, so we're gonna take out that crop. Ignoring the fact that there's clover in here, we're also going to weed. Some of the weeds we will cut out. It's sort of knowing your weed. Is this going to come back right away? Is it a grass or something like that? Or pull it. Now, if the bed is too gnarly with weeds, we might do a different process. We might weed whack the entire bed and then occultate it. Occultating is where you cover it in black plastic. Some people also call it tarping. So you're occulting the sun. So you're disallowing photosynthesis, not a good thing, but you're increasing decomposition and you're decomposing things in situ there. This time of year, it takes about 3 weeks. In the winter time, it will take double or triple that. So you just sort of have to check lifting it up and see have things died back. Some things like bindweed, I'm always going to pull. And it's basically, if you start to pull and you get like that eruption, that volcano eruption from when you pull a good weed, right? You don't want that. So one of the things that we'll do, these are our trusty harvest knives, and we often use them for weeding too. I get them in bulk from Webb Restaurant Store. They're a Victorinox, I think it's like I forget what it is, but we like the fact that it's got a round tip so you can keep it in your pocket and it doesn't poke through or poke you. They're serrated. This one is not very sharp any longer, but even sometimes like I'll weed slightly under there, or what we'll do if we have like especially a grass, we'll do what we call, I'm not seeing a good grass that I can pull out and weed, we'll do what we call a jack-o'-lantern cut. So if you think about, you're going to go carve a jack-o'-lantern and you want to take out the top first, right? You're going to go and make a cone. And so that's what we're doing with that grass also. Imagine that grass is the stem. So you're sort of making a cone. So you're not getting all the root hairs that are going to create that explosion of soil, but you're getting sort of that base of the roots out of that. So that jack-o'-lantern cut is something that I like to do if I've got like something big that I'm trying to get out. Otherwise, something like, sometimes these will cause a little bit of an explosion. I'll go a little bit below the soil surface to cut it out. So you can see I definitely got some of the roots, but not the big tap root that would have really disturbed the soil. Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So now let's continue, because now you have a barren exposed bed. Now we want to put, what do we say, beets into it? What are we going to do? We're going to use some amendments. About 80% of the time on my soil that's pretty good and rich. If it's a quick crop like a baby bok choy and I'm going to put some lettuce in, I'm not going to put amendments on it. I'm actually just going to plant the next crop on it. But most of the time we're going to want amendments and then compost. So we end up using a little bit of nitrogen. We use a pelleted chicken feather meal. Depending on where you get it, it's either 12 or 1300. So the numbers are your NPK. I hate thinking about that because I think it really silos things. And a lot of our plants need a lot of nitrogen. That's why the clover was chosen, right? Because it's fixing nitrogen. So a little bit of nitrogen. Also, compost in general is a little on the lower side of nitrogen. If I wanted to get all our nitrogen needs met, I'd have to add so much that I'm then going to have too much phosphorus and other things like that. So adding a little bit of that chicken feather meal. Next, we're also going to do calcium. That's partially because originally we started off with a pretty acidic soil. A lot of our plants really want that calcium, especially some of the summer ones, but also your brassicas, right? So this bed is going to get about 2 yogurt cups of calcium. We, because we were high in manganese and a lot of like the gypsums and things like that have that in there, we have gone with oyster meal. We also find that that is a byproduct, just like the chicken feather meal, of another process rather than a mined product. So it feels better to us, right?
Is that a pretty fine particle?
It is really fine. In fact, you don't want to be shaking it from up here. It's gonna, you want to go down and maybe not do it on a windy afternoon. And then the last thing is a little bit of azomite is what we use, or some other rock dust. It's a byproduct of mining, so don't really love that. But it's all sorts of different trace minerals, from zinc to boron to, you name it. And the plants do need that, and they do uptake it. The biology needs it. So we tried to cut it out several years ago, and we, especially in our brassicas, honestly found we had like all sorts of issues. The stems were hollow, and they weren't able to uptake other things.
How much azomite?
About the same like the calcium. Okay, now we're going to put our compost on top of those fertilizers. And when we started off, we were doing about 1 inch of compost per transition. That's a lot. As our soil organic matter has gotten higher, we started at about 2% soil organic matter. And I can go into soil organic matter if you'd like me to.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. But let me finish this sentence first. As it's gotten up to 8 to 12%, we are not needing that much. We are down to sort of enough to just cover the amendments, if that makes sense. So is it a 1/4 inch? I'm not quite sure. 1/4 to 1/2 inch, something like that, which we're doing. And next we're going to transplant our next crop in there. We try to do as much as possible by transplant, so that we're going from a photosynthesizing plant to the next photosynthesizing plant within a matter of an hour, rather than having to start a seed and have barren exposed soil and all of that stuff. So I said we're going to transplant beets in here. Yes, we sow beets in the nursery. We sow beets in the nursery in little clumps. Beets, like chard, you cannot get an individual beet seed. They're in these little seed clusters. That's why beets, if you direct seed, you have to do a lot of thinning. And so we sow sort of 2 to 5 beet seed clusters in a cell. We do not thin it, and then we transplant out those bunches, 3 lines every 12 inches. And you start with little plants like this, and very quickly they're covering the soil. So we would use those lines and transplant along them, and then we're going to hand water in. So for this time of year, about 7 to 10 days, we're actually manually watering them in. Some people who've copied us have started using like little sprinklers and things like that. I have found that the farmer's footstep is your best fertilizer, and when they're your babies, you really want somebody looking at them and like manually doing it, and that's worth a lot. A lot. Yes, please.
Because you do this about 3 times a year.
Yeah.
This is about the annual application
3 times that.
times 3. Okay.
Yeah, or more, because sometimes we'll get more successions than that.
Okay. And
Yeah.
pretty much universally, all the crops you grow.
So the 1300 for most crops, but sometimes when we get into some of our like summer squashes, cucumbers, instead we'll use a 13-6 or 8, I forget. Also organic. All of these can be got at Harmony, but if you're buying larger quantities, I recommend going straight to Lee Ballisters, which is a seed and fertilizer store. Yeah, and always getting the organic ones. Yeah. now a lettuce interplanted with scallions. So scallions is actually another crop that we sow in little clusters, and then we'll harvest them in little clusters. So it definitely helps. We could do it by seeder, but we find that this interplanting, it's 100% crop cover of, this is a red butter lettuce, and then it's only about a 50% of the scallion. One side benefit of this interplant is we have found that the scallion keeps a lot of birds off of the lettuce. So especially in the springtime when the birds are like nipping at the lettuces, I don't know if it's a smell or if it's a structure of all these little pokey things sticking up, but it works. Otherwise, we end up using a certain kind of netting that's actually insect netting in the springtime on a lot of our crops, especially when they're close to a hedgerow, because the birds will just sit in the bush and then flit down and take a bite and flit down and take a bite. And so this isn't a full hedgerow, but I'm envisioning that it is. So if we're planting out this bed, and maybe that bed is going to get pretty badly damaged. That one that's currently got the summer squash in it is not. It's actually far enough away that it doesn't get hit for some reason. And so the ones right up against hedgerows, we will do that too. Okay, soil organic matter. So soil, I mentioned before the different, sandy versus loam versus so forth. But regardless of that, soil is about 95% minerals, air, and water. Okay? The rest of it is soil organic matter. Soil organic matter is the soil biology, the poop of the soil biology, the decaying bodies of the soil biology. It's your humus. It's what's able to take death and create it back into life. If you have 0% soil organic matter, you've got a rock or you've got like sand on the beach or something like that, right? So you can see the value of having that for growing things. And tillage really is decreasing that, because as you're having tillage, you're volatilizing a lot of the carbon, a lot of the compounds in there into the air, thus decreasing your soil organic matter. Herbicides, pesticides, all those sides are decreasing your soil organic matter because they're killing the life, right? And killing the ability to have that interaction, and eventually then it'll get volatilized, also leaving you just with that minerals, air, and water, which we need those things, but we need the balance. They believe in the United States, our fertile lands used to pre-industrialized agriculture be between 6 and 10% soil organic matter. Now it's 1 to 2, with California having an average, according to the CDFA, of 1% soil organic matter. So yeah, as soil organic matter is 57% carbon, just to give you a real, so we've lost all that soil carbon, but also that is our soil structure, that is our soil biology, and that's why I talk about it a little bit. When we started off on the farm here, we had about 2% soil organic matter. After putting these regenerative principles in place, we pretty quickly bumped up, such that depending on the bed, the time of year and so forth, we're between 8 and 12% soil organic matter right now. I think that 6 to 10% that they say they were finding on fertile area in the United States, I think that's sort of like, we haven't gone beyond 12, and I think there's a reason for that. Like, Mother Nature has sort of a sweet spot in there.
Can I ask you something before we move on?
Yeah.
The weed barrier that you have in the squash.
Oh, thank you for asking. And you'll see more of this as we go below. Plastics are really useful on the farm, and there are a lot of plastics that don't last very long. Yes, so this is a weed barrier, and it's got holes at the spacing of the summer squash, but also other things, so we can use them for different crops. It is a landscape fabric. So it looks like this. We get landscape fabric at basically 2 different widths. One is 6 foot wide, and that is great for covering a bed for occultation, but also for weed barrier. And then we burn the holes in them. We make like a cookie cutter pattern, and we take a little blowtorch and just seriously and burn the holes in them. Some of our crops in our hoop houses, like our eggplant and things like that, we'll use it on. Our strawberries we'll use it on. And you have another question.
So does the occultation also affect the dynamic growth that's happening underneath in the ground? Are you kind of destroying some of that?
Maybe. I wouldn't want to be occulting something for 6 months. Let's put it that way. So it's just a short, like cutting it down. And if you were to take it further along the line of occultation, you could do solarization, which can be a little bit harder. Solarization is where you don't you're not occulting, you don't have a black cover, but you have a see-through cover, like greenhouse plastic. And you're then creating a greenhouse effect in there, but it can be hard to do, and I have an example of that if you want to see that. Sometimes if you can do it just right, you can solarize a bed in a day when it's hot, and you guys might not get hot enough. We really find that it needs to be like 75, 80 degrees in order to do it. Yes. Exactly did, right? So other things that we're looking at
And with
here.
rust, you've got some, looks like some rust on the scallion.
I know it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You did bring up rust, and you guys are so damp.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I have a really great answer for rust, except for, yeah, that's actually a lot. And it's been so cool and misty recently.
Yeah.
What was it I was seeing? Rust on mint yesterday when I was harvesting a bunch for a chef.
We got,
Oh, no,
we
she
did-
should.
Wait, what
We
should?
had mint,
Yeah.
same thing.
I mean, usually my take is going to be get it out of the ground, clean it up, and get something different in there. I don't know that I have another solution. Besides, my general solution is having healthy soil and healthy plants. Yeah, and then you have a problem, get it out of there.
What's your spacing on your cabbage?
3 lines every 12 inches.
What's your irrigation schedule?
Great question. So aside from the hand watering in when plants are new, it's sort of, I never want it to be a schedule because I want a person to be thoughtful. There's a heat wave coming. It should change. You know, we've had cool, misty mornings. Yeah, maybe we can
How
back
many
off.
gallons per hour are your reverse?
A half.
Okay, that's what we've got too.
Okay, got it.
Info is
Yeah.
relevant.
We have our water team here too.
Got it. I see that. Yeah, but we actually have a big irrigation system. So like this is field 4, this is field 6, that's field 5. So it'll get like 30 minutes on field 4, then 30, and we'll just set it all at once and then walk away.
And how frequently?
Right now it's about every 4 days, a half hour.
Half hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your goal is somewhere an inch of rainfall equal.
Yep. And but note also that the kale and the cabbage is getting the same as these, as the zinnias, there are occasional times garlic, tomatoes, sometimes winter squash when we'll turn them off, and we like to have little valves on the ends of them so we can turn off a specific bed. And then you really need to make sure to turn it back on again when you get that crop out of there.
Yeah, it is cold and wet even far away from the dripper, about 4
This
inches
isn't-
to 6 inches.
Great. This is not a great example because they're young, and so I think they're still getting hand watered in.
I was surprised how wet they were
Yeah,
underneath.
so they were probably hand watered yesterday around
I was
2 o'clock in the
impressed.
afternoon. So, yeah.
Do you hand water all your new seedlings that you when you first put them in the
We
ground?
do. Yeah, so we have a whole
7
tracker
to 10
on
days?
what was planted exactly in what bed and what variety was it and what was the seed date for it. So it serves a lot of purposes. So, yes.
So my wife's a fan of leaving weeds everywhere for insects to go to.
Okay.
And I see lots of weeds. We have not been so good at leaving them. We mostly take them out. But so I'm just curious if that's a part of your plan.
It's a balance.
Okay.
Most of these beds have gotten hoed. I mean, this pathway here, I do try to keep green. I don't know if anybody noticed that these beds are not on contour, right? And we did that intentionally because it was enough of a slope that in heavy rains when we were on contour here, we changed them. It would bust through the bed and create this gully. And so we changed it and then put in a green pathway down the middle to catch. And if we have heavy rains, I'll actually put some straw flakes in the pathways there. So this pathway is intended to be green, but it's hard to keep it in any one thing. I also really like, we haven't talked about hedgerow plants too much yet, but perennials. You can see that there's yarrow on all the bed ends in this field here. There's a couple reasons. I like it for flower bouquets. It's great bioaccumulator. It's great for pollinators. Also, a lot of our irrigation is like a 2-inch line across the top and then just plugged in there, but we've gone to trying to get more and more of the PVC risers. I can't even find this one, but the first one you can see there. And guess what? When we first put those in this field, in the first week, 2 of them were broken. The second week, 3 more were broken by people stepping on them, hitting them with a wheelbarrow. And so by putting in this plant, it just gave it some space.
Cushion.
I love it.
So yes, sometimes you need to think about what is an ecological solution to whatever the issue might be.
You're bagging the dahlias?
Yeah, what are you doing with the dahlias?
Yeah, we're bagging them because the cucumber beetles have been so bad this year. And these field dahlias, I might not normally bag, but because of this cool weather, our flowers, I'm just not having enough, so I need every single one.
So you take those to market then?
Yeah, so you'll take one off. A few of them didn't get it, but you'll take it off and then harvest it. So it keeps the cucumber beetles off of it. They just go in there and they love those petals. You know what? They munch on a cucumber, you got a little scabbing, you could still sell it. A dahlia, the point of it is to look pretty. We can see sort of a lot of like hedgerows and sort of space here. So let's talk about those if you're not too hot in the sun right now. This is one of our biggest open spaces. You can see I was talking about, we just pollarded those oaks like 3 months ago. At this point, they haven't grown back up again. They will. But definitely that is our windbreak there, our spray break from our neighbors. But we've got this area here where we've got the fruit trees and we've got a couple of hedgerow plants. Those are sort of more islands. Those are a native honeysuckle. It's called twinberry. I really, really love it. The pollinators love it. It's amazing filler for flower bouquets. The birds love it and so forth. And so they're just sort of little islands. Here, this is one of our newer hedgerows here because this whole field just was wide and open. And where a couple of you are standing, I tried to put a couple plants there, but they kept dying. People kept running over them or missing them and weed whacking them and things like that. So why do we want those hedgerow plants? You can see a good one down there. It's got some Sonoma County variegated dogwood. It's got some coyote bush. It's got a little toy on over there. Never mind the butterfly bush, not so native there, but somebody stuck it in. It's got another twinberry. It's got some native rose. It's got some dogwoods. Really, really, really love having those. For the climactic stabilization, like the windbreak, but also what that means is the area around it on a hot day is going to be a little bit cooler. On a cold day is going to be a little bit warmer. Maybe you guys don't need that as much, but also it brings in so much life. Beneficial insects need that sort of habitat. So real quickly, my spiel on pest versus beneficial insects. Pest insects. We put that word pest on a certain group of insects because they specifically go after our crops. There is nothing biological that denotes what a pest is and not, except for the fact that they're herbivores, right? That's why they're a pest to us. Versus a beneficial insect is a carnivore. So if what we want is we want to provide more habitat for carnivores. And if you think about it like, and omnivores, if you think about it like that, insects are weird. We don't get them. Mammals are a little less weird. We are one, right? We have pets that are some, so we understand them a little bit. But if you think about a pest mammal, it might be something like a deer or a bunny rabbit or something like that. Versus a gopher too. Versus like a coyote or a bobcat is going to be a beneficial. Now, that gets complicated if you have chickens and things like that and sheep and so forth. But let's think about it in terms of plants. So how can we provide more habitat for those coyotes and bobcats is really what we want to do. And those bunny rabbits, they're smaller. They need less space. They reproduce very quickly, right? They can have a litter every 2 months. There are pests. And the same thing with, say, like an aphid or something like that, or a cucumber beetle. They have a short lifespan, they reproduce very quickly, and they're gonna live on the plants that they're gonna eat, or in the weeds right nearby, right? Aphids, for crying out loud, they're born pregnant, right? Or they're impregnated by the prior, by themselves or the prior generation. There's a couple different things that can go on. Who's gonna eat them? Maybe a lady beetle, right? Lady beetles can live 9 months, even up to a year. They're gonna have fewer progeny, and they're going to travel a really long distance to go hunting. Have you ever released ladybugs and then you're like, where'd they go? They didn't die. They just went hunting someplace else, right? So, right? So having the habitat where they can have safety from their predators is going to mean that you've always got some of them there. And that's really why And studies have shown that what they like is perennials that are densely branched throughout the year, providing them shade and habitat. Then there's very specific things like ladybugs love deer grass. So guess what? You see that whole line of deer grass up there, and there's another line over there, there's some more over there. I threw deer grass in a bunch of different things, not your traditional hedgerow. Beetles also love that. So how can we provide habitat for that? A ground beetle, they can eat an insane number of cucumber beetle larvae. You know, nematodes, a little bit different, but with the beetles, I've actually been doing some studies with Ellie from the UC Extension. You might know her. And she came out here. She was interested in some phylums, but also in, we were having this winter, not so much, but the winter before, a huge slug problem. And I was like, what can we do about this? So I'm not thinking about, you know, using sprays, but, you know, beetles are going to eat them a lot. How can we increase our beetle population? And what she did is she did samples of arthropods in lots of different places. The garlic beds had an insane number of predatory beetles. They were a long-term straw mulch. She came out and it was like late May, and the tomato bed she tested in one of the tomato beds, it was straw mulch, but it had only been mulched for a month and it didn't have that. Her hedgerows had large numbers of predatory beetles. So it actually made me say, I even want more of garlic, because not only is garlic a great crop, but it's providing this habitat for a predator that I want more of on the property.
What about birds?
Birds. I love them. Honestly, just by having the hedgerows, they love, you know, having that. We do have bluebird houses on the property. We've got 7 of them. I highly recommend it. Sometimes other birds use it and don't really care. You know, use it out. We clean it out twice a year, so we can get a couple of flushes in there. We do not have any owl boxes, but I do recommend them. We don't, because we have great horned owls naturally here, and they would hunt the smaller owls that would live in those boxes, and so I sort of felt like it was.
I've only seen one gopher hole.
Oh heck, you're not okay. Let me. If you see a pin flag anywhere, that's there's a gopher trap there. Yeah. So we have a lot of gophers. Right now we're not doing so much, but it can get up to us doing about 8 hours of gopher trapping a week. That's a lot.
Do you have a preferred type of trap?
Cinch traps.
Oh,
The bee traps.
they're wire and they just.
Yep.
Yeah, we use those tubes, and I don't know that they work very well.
Like the gopher
No, they
hawks?
don't. We actually looked at various gopher traps a few years ago. The gopher team, we've got a gopher patrol.
Yep.
And
I do too.
the best gopher traps also risk breaking a finger, and so with 140 gardeners, we thought, okay, gardeners who don't understand gopher traps, you know, we put safety first.
Yeah. I mean, we just do a pin flag, and if there's a pin flag, you know there's a trap there, and you stay around it. We also tie all of our traps to a piece of PVC that's hammered into the ground, because otherwise a raccoon says,
away.
well, you just caught me dinner, and then takes the trap off. And you find it 9 months later, it's rusted. You know, that $12 trap. You get too close to me. We love skunks. They're really, really great. And that's why we live trap them and move them, which is technically not like
earthworms.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, earthworms do tremendous stuff. So they essentially eat soil, and then they have all sorts of enzymes in their gut that when they then poop it out, so that you get castings, which are like little balls of soil.
Right. We've noticed we don't have a lot of earthworms.
Got it.
In our soil.
In some
that
beds.
was one thing that we, you know, were concerned about.
But we've been solarizing a lot when we had the blight issue. And I noticed in my house I had lots of worms, and I solarized because I had blight too. No worms afterwards.
Yeah.
Got it.
Too long.
Got it. Okay. And they may have just said, not happy here, go deeper or go away someplace. It's not necessarily that you killed them, but you didn't provide a lovely habitat for them. That's for sure. It's honestly just those principles: having green photosynthesizing plant, having water, and that sort of thing. It's usually spring that we have the most. It's usually May and June that we have this problem. It's not the first time we've had this problem.
When you come in to replant, how much do you leave in the ground?
Great. So first of all, usually these are bolting a little bit, which is
Right.
why they're getting harvested like this.
Okay.
Usually we would harvest the entire head.
Okay.
And so assume that this is a nice big huge
Okay.
head. When we're harvesting something like this, I'm actually going to do a double cut. So the first cut was below the soil level, like I was telling you about, slightly at an angle. So that's the clear the bed cut. And then I'm going to do a second cut like this, and then let all those leaves fall away. Now I've got envision the whole head, my nice head, and I take care of it. So again, that's cutting it below the soil level at a bit of an angle, bringing it up, and then doing a second cut. And sometimes I'm just
leave
cleaning
the
it.
leaves on the soil.
I do.
Yeah.
Or sometimes in the pathway. And then this gets put away.
So replanting, that's the only cut you do
Yes.
to leave those roots. And how close do you plant to that root when you plant again?
That's a great question. We actually pulled out our plants for a long time because we assumed the roots would get in our way.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. And if it does, just move over a half inch. Or if it's really a problem because it was a huge, like, Brussels sprout stalks, then you take your entire planting and move it like down 3 inches or something like that.
Because they actually benefit from putting their roots into the ball of old roots. Okay.
Absolutely, because if we pull this out,
Oh my God.
I know, isn't that
my
just
growth.
horrible? What I did there, I mean, all of
Look
this
at all
is the
children.
rhizosphere.
Yeah.
Like that was all the real good life is right there.
Yeah.
So if I plant another plant right next to there, they're starting to have those same interactions with that same soil biology.
Doesn't matter if you plant with something else or with the same crop, they're all going to benefit each other.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly.
So most of your beds are mounded, not.
Yeah.
You don't
They
have
are
raised-
mounded, but in ground.
Yeah. Like,
I really
Right, but
don't
you
like
don't-
wooden raised beds. I have a
That was my
few for a very,
question.
very, very specific reason. We'll do like our parsley in them and our high-end dahlias and things like that. We really don't want gophers to get into. We started off by having, well, not started off, but by year 3, we probably had 30 very large wooden raised beds. By very large, I mean anywhere from 25 to 50 feet long.
Yeah, that's-
Where we had gopher wire
ours are.
underneath and landscape fabric and so forth. What we really found is, remember that homeostasis I was talking about earlier? It's hard to get that in there. We've also found, so the sides of the bed, we actually, in the raised beds, I can show you, we have different irrigation. We have smaller irrigation and like 5 lines across the bed because it dries out at the edges, right? Because you've got the edge effect where you've got the wooden sidewalls where it's getting a lot more airflows, it's drying out, it's getting hotter, it's getting colder, all of that sort of stuff, and it's not contiguous with the soil. Now it's really nice for our lower backs. It's really nice because we don't have to deal with the gophers. Like, I get it.
Ours just jumped the.
There's that
We have
too.
smart gophers.
Yeah. But generally we have found, so there, Symphyllans is one, it's a little worm, really little worm. It's a little garden worm, and it loves eating organic matter. And so a lot of farmers are afraid to add too much compost because I've got Symphyllans and it's just going to increase their population. And if you look online how to manage Symphyllans, it actually says beat the crap out of your soil, decrease your soil organic matter, till and then till again, until again. Because you're taking away their food source, right? Yeah, okay. There are also predators of Symphyllans, mites, spiders, different kinds of nematodes and things like that. So part of the reason I had Ellie coming out is she was hearing from a lot of people, I'm afraid to go no-till because of Symphyllans. And I'm like, okay, we've been doing no-till for 15 years. We've had Symphyllin outbreaks and they've gone away. And she's like, okay, I want to test your soil. I need to prove to people that you don't have Symphyllans, which she did 15 different traps and she didn't catch a single one. So she's like, this is great because now I have, I can talk to people about that. But the one place where we had like 3 different problems in the row with the Symphyllans were our wooden raised beds. And how we solved it is we took out a third of the soil and put in field soil.
How do you spell Symphyllans?
SYMPH.
Okay.
Field soils, meaning,
We dug it out of a bed
and put it
Native
in there.
dirt.
and put it in there.
Native dirt.
Yeah,
We had them in Oregon. The mint farmers in Oregon. It's a huge problem.
really.
Yeah, over the years. I was in the industry up there. Not in the industry,
Got it. Okay, from here, we can look at indoor growing, but I don't know if that's relevant to you guys at all.
Most of it is, it's mostly a germination house, and then we move.
We do a lot of our summer squash in these, especially our first ones that go in, which go in mid-March. Here, I'll walk in more. So this one particularly, this one has our some of our sweet peppers. We've got Jimmy Nardellos, and we actually don't do bell peppers. We have tried so many times, so many varieties, and they just don't work. So we really like these. The yellows are not quite coming to fruition, but we like the Italian sweet. You can use them just like a bell. They're amazing, and they do really great. So they're just, that one's got a little spot on it, but love the Italian sweet. So, also Jimmy Nardellos, people love those. I'm trying out lunchbox this year. Also, some of our houses will have eggplant in them. Don't even try to do eggplant outside. We have figured out field tomatoes. Partially, a lot of the varieties that are there are Russian varieties. I've got Moskovich, Malachitova, Shkatulka, Azoichka, and a few others like that. I know, right?
Yeah. I'm impressed.
But guess what? The Russians have varieties that can do cool climates.
Yeah. We do some outdoors. I do the dry farming, and one of our members does cherries, and they do very well, actually.
Great. Yeah. So next year we're going to try again doing some indoors. I don't actually know why we planted this summer squash. Oh, because it's a late one. So our early ones and our late ones are in here. We are trying the melon this year, and it seems to be doing well, but honestly the outdoor one is doing better. So we tried 2 beds indoor and 2 beds outdoor. This is a type of crane melon. I don't know if you guys know, but the crane family developed the crane melon in Petaluma. I couldn't get a straight crane seed this year. I think I got this either from Wild Garden or Adaptive Seeds, both of which are up in Oregon, and it's called Sweet Freckles, and it's delightful. I've had a few of them. This is the same cloth that we were looking out there that you were pointing out, but here, because the plants are small, you can really see it much better. So a lot of mulch in here on the peppers. Anyway, just wanted to show you something different, and now we're all hot. Let's go outside and take a right. I found they're in Carbondale, Colorado. They expose their tomatoes, their peppers, and things like that to frost both at the beginning of the season and the end of their season, and they choose the hardiest. We got a tomato, it's called Mountain Spirit Bicolor. It is our first heirloom. They're like this big, and we were harvesting them even after last frost, first frost. So right now they have no seeds on their website. I'm really hoping they do again this winter. Some of those peppers you saw in there are from them. We also tried a cucumber from them. Didn't work well.
What was the name of the company again?
Wild Mountain. So and they also do no-till practices. They're in Carbondale, Colorado. So like the varieties we got from them are just amazing. We're trying this year a Berkeley pink tie-dye from them.
We grow those in our greenhouse.
Got it.
Yeah.
It was our first heirloom on this year.
Yeah.
And I'm not shocked because
they have that outdoors.
Yes. Because they are just choosing for the ones that are working for them.
And you got it from Wild Garden?
Not Wild Garden, Wild Mountain.
Wild Mountain.
I do like Wild Garden also. Wild Garden is in Oregon. It's run by a genius breeder. His name is Frank Morton. He does really cool, fun things. All of this said, we get over 90% of our seed from Johnny's. So these are sort of the little specialty things.
Too.
Yeah. So
What was the first tomato you had said?
Moskovich.
Okay.
And you can actually get Moskovich these days, or Moskovich. I always put a vowel in there and there's not. I actually get it from Johnny's, but it is an heirloom. There's nothing all that special about it. It's just a red slicer, but it goes. So.
What's the variety of strawberries?
We do all seascape. Yeah, so that's another one that we grow through the plastic. Because of our productivity, you can taste one if you'd like. Nobody's tasting one. There she goes. There's a couple more beds behind me. We plant them every year in early February. We get a first flush, and then they do really well for us through the seasons. You guys would do amazing with strawberries.
You said
said you plant them every year, but you don't remove the crop every year, do you?
We remove most of them. I keep 2 to 3 beds because those beds will have early ones, but they don't taste very good.
So you mostly plant a fresh crop every year? Yep. Everybody hear that? They mostly plant a fresh crop of strawberries every year.
Yep.
Yeah.
What are the positives of using that plastic down there? Is it acting as a mulch?
Yes.
Is it and a weed suppressor?
Yes.
What else?
I mean, that's most
basically
of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is one of the beds we overwintered, and anyway, the strawberries are smaller and they don't taste as good. And
Oh, okay.
It's
I was
about to come
go
up.
for one.
No. This bed.
Oh, okay.
Those beds are good. Strawberries especially really don't like their roots to be disturbed. Also, here's another one on strawberries. We tried thick straw, we tried thick compost, and we found that once we moved to plastic, they lasted longer. If we had them on straw, their shelf life was like 12 hours because they were so biologically active that the funguses just took over pretty immediately. Wow. And here they're touching plastic or the rest of the plant, and their shelf life is maybe 36 hours, but that's a lot better than 12 if I'm selling it at a market. Second, but I'll get to it for sure. So you can look at the hoop houses, see different things. This one's really different. This is 2 beds of cucumbers. Really bad year for cucumber beetles, and then a bed of eggplants. We got 3 more beds of strawberries here. I told you I'd show you beets. Here's some recently transplanted beets. They do look happy. They're little bunches. These were transplanted a week and a half ago. So you've already got pretty sufficient soil cover, right? And we've got Chioggia, we've got red, and we've got gold. I like mixing my colors of beets. But for those people who just showed up, these are beets. These are little clumps of beets that I was talking about before. Transplanting 3 lines every 12 inches. You will see that each one of these is sort of a cluster of 5 to 7 or so beets. They've been in the ground all of a week and a half.
And were they started in cell packs?
Yeah.
What size?
I'll show you in the nursery. Yeah, great. And how are we doing for time? Okay, we might go a little over 90 minutes. That's okay.
It's all good.
Right now we're crossing our high water mark. So right now we're crossing into the land of we can't grow in down here in the winter. So you see this is a big block, winter squash here, although it's about, I think this is 4 different varieties here. We grow a lot of delicata, butternut, kabocha. Not so much kabocha. We lose a lot of kabocha to rodents. They seem to love that more than others.
Is this dry farmed?
It's minimal watered, but we did dry farm.
How in the world
we
do
aren't
you
this
pick
year.
that?
On the back side, we've got some brassicas. We've got our first succession of corn, some cosmos. Okay. What do we see in these 3 beds besides the gopher trap? Clover. So these 3 beds we direct seeded last October, November, densely with clover. We let it grow all winter. All of these beds down here, as many as possible, have a winter cover crop. Mostly, well, let me talk about that later. Let's talk about the clover. So these were an exception. So these were a trial. So we had 2 beds up above where we did the interplant with the clover, where we sowed it in the nursery. Here it was just direct sown right before some rain, and it did really great. It was just a grassy, undulating land. And then this spring we came through, we weed whacked it super low. We put down ferts and compost, and we planted into it. We had 2 beds of red Russian kale and a bed of cauliflower. It's the best cauliflower we've grown in years.
What is it?
It was the best cauliflower.
No, but what?
Well, it's the same variety as it was Bishop, but we grew it the same plants everywhere else on the farm, and this was just amazing. This red Russian kale, part of the succession, was in a different bed someplace else that didn't have the clover. This was ready in the spring 2 weeks earlier, and throughout the season tasted tremendously better. I'm really excited about it. So this was transplanted a week and a half ago. I think it was a Friday, so almost 2 weeks ago now. It was mowed super low. That clover is bouncing back super fast. So one of the things we're working is how do we manage this clover right here? And we were just sort of coming through last time and honestly just sort of doing that, which is a lot of labor, but also not that tremendously bad. and we're just sort of constantly cutting it back. And we will see how this crop does, and we'll see how it does over the winter. I'm planning on doing many more beds and maybe trialing a couple other kinds of clover also.
Is this a perennial? Perennial
It
clover?
is.
So you're planning on leaving it in here for multiple years if you
Exactly.
can?
Yeah. And the farmers that I was talking to in the Northeast who are more tillage based but are doing it, they say it works really well for corn, for winter squash, and for brassicas. I mean, you don't want to put a lettuce in here, you don't, that sort of thing. We've only done brassicas. I want to try it with corn next year. I'm not quite so sure about winter squash, but we'll see. I think it's going to just totally get shaded out, but who knows?
Palestine clover.
Can we say that that's also acting as a mulch for you, the clover?
A living mulch.
A living mulch, just by
Yeah.
covering the ground.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So
Palestine clover.
Yeah.
you're building the soil, but you're not getting the benefit of the additional crop like you did interplanting.
This is
with
true.
The,
This is true.
and is there a logic for how you select what you're going to use clover for versus how you're going to?
We're working that out. But like I said, they said winter squash, big seeded crops, but winter squash, brassicas, and corn is what they were suggesting. Although, you know what? It would be great under, maybe under tomatoes. I don't know. Would that work? I wonder.
Are you
Peppers.
looking for heavy
users.
nitrogen feeders?
Yeah.
Brassicas.
There you go.
We are not always intercropping. If you look at the two beds behind you that don't have clover in them, they didn't get an intercrop. Maybe it was because we didn't have it in the nursery. Maybe it is because these fields are a little bit harder. It's also because that is a tighter spacing. So, but we could have done like one mini romaine in between. Yeah, crop.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you a different cover crop right now.
So you kind of used your saleable crop as a cover crop.
Right? What is a cover crop? It's a crop that's different than your normal crop, that's covering the soil, hence the name, that's photosynthesizing when you don't have something else going on.
Keeping everything alive down below.
Exactly.
So it shouldn't make any difference.
So in the winter down here, our traditional cover crop is as many different grains as I can get, especially like oats, triticale, rye, things like that, and then I'll mix in some peas and vetch and so forth. These are seasonal ponds. They are usually empty by the 4th of July. So I think this tells us how wet of a year it's been, and then how cool our June and July have been also, for sure. And I've got a tree that fell over, and I got a goat that escaped, so the other goats are jealous. And the gate you came through, is not there for looks. It's there 100% for deer. It's only been in there like 22 months. And this tree, I haven't taken it out because I sort of keeping to remind myself, the deer just chomped and chomped and chomped and chomped and chomped and chomped. So I am thrilled to not have had deer on the property in over a year. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
We used to lose a lot. But I wanted to talk a little bit about water with the seasonal ponds. A couple of different things. First, with soil organic matter, I talked a little bit about that, but there are a lot of interactions, as you would guess, with water and soil organic matter. So for instance, and I like to do this like mental experiment, you can imagine like a plastic cup where you've got sand on one side and good garden soil on the other, poke some holes in the bottom, pour some water over it. What happens? Right? You can envision what's happening there. The sand, it's either hitting the top and going off or it's going straight through the bottom and then it's going to dry out pretty quickly. That's what low soil organic matter soil would do. It will either run off the top or go straight through and then be dry again. Versus the good garden soil, it's going to work like a sponge and it's going to hold it longer. They say for every 1 percentage point increase in soil organic matter, an acre of land in the top 12 inches can hold an additional 20,000 gallons of water. Well, I just told you that we went from 2 to an average of 10. So multiply that by 8 for me, for all of my acres, right? And that's why somebody asked how much we irrigate. And I said half an hour about every 4th night. When we started here, we were doing 50 minutes every other night. Because we had that same, like the water was just going through and the soil was dry. So with increased soil organic matter, you don't have to water as much. You also have less erosion. You have more infiltration, right? When we have a flash flood, like almost nothing stays on the vineyard and it'll rush over here versus when we've been flooded here, like about 20 feet that way. I took a video once, like looking down and I'm wearing boots and the water's up to like here on me. And the water is just, and there's literally bubbles coming up. Like it's just soaking into the ground. We had a soil scientist out here, I guess it's been 4 years ago now, Ray Archuleta. He's a no-till specialist, and he did some water infiltration tests. And what he did is he took a round circle, a metal circle, stuck it in the ground, then put saran wrap on it, a liter of water, and that was an inch of rain. And you pull it so it all hits the soil at the same exact second. It took 56 seconds to infiltrate an inch of water. We trespassed to our neighbor's property, 26 minutes. More than 26 times as long. We also went to a friend of ours farm that does tillage but is a really good organic farm, 6 minutes. So that just shows you like that open soil can just like pull it in. Then you've got better water use efficiency. The plants are able to use that water. I think that's because of the biology that's there, right? Helping, but also it's there and present and so forth. So super, super important. These ponds have told us a lot about our water. Like I just said, oh, usually it's empty by the 4th of July. It must say something about how wet this winter is and how cool. Like if you look at our property from where you parked up above to down here, this is the bottom of the property. Unless we have a flood and the water's going overland, the only place water leaves the pond is, you can't see it because of that willow that's falling over, but there's a culvert on the far side that goes over to our neighbor's property. So we can really see, are we having any issues? Are we having runoff? Water adjacent, early on we had an article written about us called The Drought Fighter. We had this journalist who took 13 months, came out here like 6, 7, 8 times, and really wanted to do a deep dive on what we were doing. The Drought Fighter is the name of the article. And one of the times he brought an organic consultant with him, and he had us give that guy a tour, and then he turned to him and he said, so what are they doing that's wrong? This was not at all stressful, but what the guy said, and he's good, he's based in Monterey, he worked at UC Santa Cruz for a while, as he said, they're using way too much compost. If they were organic certified, which we happen to not be organic certified, mostly because I don't need to be, and I don't want to do the paperwork, actually entirely for those reasons, this would be way above and beyond. You're poisoning your waterways, is what he said. Now, again, not at all stressful to us, who we love ecology and so forth, and we're like, we really don't think so. Like, okay, we've got pond weeds, but there's no like algae scum. I don't know if you've ever seen waterways below a lot of ag, and it's like this bubbly, nasty stuff. That's from too much nitrogen, right? We have crawdads, we have river otters come here, we have turtles through here. Like, we really don't think we're poisoning our water. He's like, I don't care what you're saying, you need to test your water. So the next 3 winters we tested with one of the first big rains. We tested the water running onto the property, running through the property, our upper ponds, and then down here, because we've got this really nice experiment. At the same time, we were talking with another farmer from Quebec, or after the first year of us testing, and he was getting a lot of pushback on compost use from French agronomists, more on phosphorus. His name is Jean-Martin Fortier. He's written a couple of books. And so the second and third year we tested both. Phosphorus wasn't very interesting. It was same through the entire system, including our well water. Nitrogen was really interesting. We had, 10 parts per million is what the EPA says is safe drinking water. We had 8 parts per million running on from our neighbors who at that time had a pot grow. We have a pond right below our compost piles, the purpose of which is to catch any runoff. That was 7 parts per million. Our main, what we call the irrigation pond, was 2.5 and 3 parts per million. This one right here was a 0.5 part per million, and this one right here was undetectable. So it actually showed the opposite, that we were cleaning the water rolling through the property, right? And as you dig in deeper, like, he had a really good point, this organic consultant. Like, compost is rich in nutrients, and you can have too much of a good thing, and you have too much rain going over compost, you're going to be leaching nutrients. Now, if you have good biology, that biology is holding that in place, right? Utilizing it as part of its ecosystem. And that's, pardon me?
That ion exchange capacity.
You got it. Oh, yeah. And so we don't mind the compost levels that we're using. We've also, as a result, been thoughtful. And that's been part of what I told you when we started. We were doing about 1 inch per bed transition, and now it's down to 1/4 to 1/2 inch. That also was part of that. He does have a good point, you know. So, but actually, Ray Archuleta then, when he was reading our Haney test that he did for us, he said, Elizabeth, you need to feed, the compost is not about feeding the plants, it's about feeding the biology. Yeah. and they need that carbon. He's like, you've got so much respiration in your biology and your beds. You could, like, please put wood chips in your pathways or even on the beds or something like that. I know, which is in most places a no-no to put it on the beds. He's like, you just got to feed that biology, keep it happy and keep it churning. So that's us with our level, but still we need to think about that compost is not necessarily feeding that crop. It can be a pollutant if it's used in the wrong systems in the wrong ways. We need to feed the biology. We need to think about the biology and test for it occasionally.
Yep. We're doing that in the end of August, I think, to do our first Haney test.
Sweet.
So the compost that you utilize has a lot of nitrogen in it rather than just being a mulch. Is that correct?
I wouldn't say it has a lot of nitrogen, but there is nitrogen.
But more than if it were just considered a mulch, like not enhanced.
Right. Now I'm going to go show you guys a summer cover crop that we've got going, what that looks like, and then I was going to walk up and hit the compost piles and the nursery.
Okay, perfect.
Great. So remember what I said about the farmer's footstep? We just went further. You can't even see this field from up there. This field actually got totally forgotten for 2 years as I had some bad management and I was dealing with some family health issues, and we're trying to bring it back. So it had a good winter cover crop last winter. Really interesting, that corn crop. Look at that row there. It is huge, glorious, and green. And then as you go down, it's got less and less. We actually had a crop that had daikon radish, which I hadn't grown in the past, because generally I don't want to have more brassicas in my cover crop. I want to have different crops, and we grow so many brassicas. But I think I was sold because the first 2 beds had daikon in them. And that's the only difference that I can tell. So we'll be doing more daikon in our cover crop mixes next year.
Is that like a tillage radish?
This past winter
And did you
in the
like
dry
it?
farm. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yes.
some of
Big.
them we
Unbelievable.
Yes.
Unbelievable ones.
really amazing.
Unbelievable.
Great.
Yeah.
Great,
Just
great.
from Harmony in the bin, right?
Yep.
80
So
tillage radish.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Exactly.
It's a
Yeah.
daikon.
Yeah.
But they call it tillage because it's
Straight
acting
down.
like but
Yeah.
it's not. So anyhow, we're going to terminate this. I'm going to wait till the buckwheat has some flowers. I was told that the Sudan grass was going to grow faster, so I was worried about it out-competing it. Could have mixed cowpeas in with this, but we decided not to. So this is a trial for us. I've used buckwheat a lot in the past. You can run it through in 35 days. It terminates really easily in a no-till system. We just weed whack it down and sometimes just plant straight into that. I love it as a summer, but it is summer.
Summer, yeah.
Very much summer.
Yeah.
So a frost will kill it. So that's something else that we could let a frost kill this, but I'm going to put a 3rd cover crop in here for this winter, and then this is going to be amazing soil next year.
Daikon?
I am going to use daikon. Yes. And then this will probably be corn next year or maybe winter squash. But these, let's see, it's 10 beds. These 10 beds haven't actually had a successful crop in about 3-4 years in them. So I want to change that.
When you harvest this, what are you going to?
We're just going to weed whack it in place and then put black cover on it. And then honestly, I'm going to sow the next cover crop right over it. So I'm going to start really quick by saying we do this pretty basically. And basically we want our end compost to be about 50% of what comes off our farm. And this would be a good example of what that is. We got some wilted lettuces in there. We've got some weeds. We've got some summer squash plants. There's some of that. There's some of my kitchen scraps right there. My son just dumped off there last night. So this is what's coming out of our fields. And we use our tractor, which is currently broken, but it's a John Deere with a bucket loader. And once this gets to about this size, it's ready to be turned. It's just the tractor is broken. We're going to flip it. We're going to take what's on top, put it on the bottom, take the next layer, put it on the bottom, and then start mixing the other 2 components. So I said this is about 50% of the total comes from this. Another 25% comes from manure. We use primarily horse manure, and the reason we use horse manure is because I know my farmer. I've got a friend, he boards horses, he grows his own feed. I know there's no herbicides in the feed that are going to go through and affect things. I know that he doesn't use any chemical dewormers that would kill biology in there, and he gets a lot. He also doesn't use a ton of straw, so anyway, it's pretty well composted, but the very top pile just before the nursery is probably 16-month-old composted manure. So once we start flipping this, we're going to start incorporating the manure, which is about 25% of the total. And then the other 25% is municipal compost. So we buy that in from various different sources, and I will change that up through the year. Our main one we use, because it's the cheapest, is Grab and Grow. But we honestly, the nickname for it on our farm is the crap compost. It's not we get the clean green because we find that their other products are just adding fertilizers to it. And if I'm going to add fertilizers, I want to know what I'm adding and use it, add that in that time and space. All sorts of clippings from different plants over the course of the year. And then the piles will get turned a minimum of 3, sometimes 4 times. Each time during the summer, it's a minimum of 12 days before it's turned again. We want to make sure that it's getting up to, it's usually like 120, 130 degrees. We don't want it to go too much hotter than that because then it's starting to kill your beneficials. I love it when we can let it sit a little bit longer, but right now we're just churning through it. Basic. I can go into more. I can talk about, water content. We cover them with compost blankets.
Yeah, this pretty much says it all. You've got the manure sourced really well. We don't have a real good source.
That's why I'm only using horse manure, because I know what he does.
What about poultry?
It could be good.
Yeah, you have to really check your sources and see what they feed and what
I had a chicken coop, and so I used ours because I knew exactly what was in it. But we had a llama. Llamas always poop in the same place.
Yeah.
I would use llama poop for a while. I do have an indoor rabbit, so some rabbit goes in there. But what percentage is that?
If you didn't have the manure,
Yeah.
what would you have to do differently?
We did for a long time. Our bulk density out in the field actually got really low, and some of our plants were just falling over. And that changed as soon as we brought the manure back in. So I do think it needs a little bit of that. I do worry a little bit about the amount of phosphorus that can come in from the animal sources. And in no-till, it's an interesting thing that nobody has a solution to. In no-till systems, phosphorus can get really high. Documentation says that should be bad, but it should decrease production. We have very high phosphorus. It's not decreasing our production.
Okay.
Nobody knows what to do with that. And I've asked Ray Archuleta several times. He's like, I don't know. What are you seeing? I'm like, that's what I'm seeing. He's like, I think you need to keep going.
Do you see phosphorus in the water samples?
So the phosphorus in the water samples was equal through the entire system. I know. So we're not leaching it. I know, but it is something that's like sort of bugging me back here.
But you're choosing not to add it as part of your fertilization process.
Very much so.
Yeah,
and so that's why we focus on that 1300 rather than a 13-13-13.
Right.
And even the 10-8,
Right.
I try to use as little of it as possible. The crew wants to use it a lot. I'm like, 1300. And they're like, and I'm like, by the time you're going to be producing fruits, it's gone anyway.
Yeah. Do you have a concern with not adding potassium?
So that's why we sometimes use it. Yeah. So, and our potassium is fine, honestly.
Oh,
in
okay.
our
So
soil
that's
test.
not a problem. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Do you test your compost? You see what you
I
got?
haven't in a while, actually.
Okay.
I
That was
should.
interesting,
The system's good and it's working, and so it's sort of
If it
hard to
ain't
take the
broke,
time to test it.
Fix it.
Your produce looks great, right?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, that tells you what's going on with your soil.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
That's your real pH meter for health.
I know, exactly, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
So-
In my mind.
Great.
But you know. So.
Let's go take a quick look at the nursery, the greenhouse, and so forth. February and March, this is the highest value real estate on the farm. Where you're all standing, there's so many tables that you're like walking like this to get through here. The cages are here because we do shoot production, primarily pea shoots in the winter. It keeps the rodents out. It's a great little additive to have when you just need a little bit of diversity in the winter. So we start that in November and keep that going through April or so. We have this place filled with 55 gallons of water drums. There's 80 of them in here, and that really works as a heat sink. In the winter, we don't have any heating in this, and it doesn't get below 45 degrees. It probably also helps to cool it off in the summer, but it doesn't quite feel it. We had a really fancy geothermal system in here when we first started, and those rectangles were these like German windows that had like wax in the cylinders, and so they opened at a certain temperature all on their own. They became too much of a pain in the butt, and honestly, the 55-gallon barrel, we even painted them black at one point. Don't even find that we need that anymore, so you can see how long ago it was that we painted them. Yeah, so right now, our germination chamber, as you call it, well, not right now, we don't use a germination chamber, but once we seed things, and this is our seeding table, it's high for somebody who's tall right now. We can take it down for somebody who's not. There's a bin over there where we mix 50% high quality compost. Right now we're using some of the container mixes from Cold Creek compost, about 50% or more than 50, like 60 to 70%. And then the rest is Happy Frog bagged stuff. Plus we use a little bit of crab meal and neem meal just for extra nutrients. We use our 6-packs over and over and over again. We do use 4-inch pots for a few things, for potting up tomatoes, but also for cucurbits.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, just they need it. And because we have the system, I've tried to go down in cell size a couple times for things like little gems, but because we have a system that works this way, they don't get watered enough. And so I'm like, I sort of got to stick with the system because we have the system. But you can see, like, those plants are the ones that like really need to get out right now. Like, a lot of them are just really robust, big and healthy. And for our regenerative system, that's super important to me. So having that extra big cell size so that we can do that photosynthesizing plant to the next big healthy photosynthesizing plant is super important.
When you pull the plant out of the cell, are the roots root bound?
They really shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be, but the tops are awfully big.
Yeah, those are a little too
Are they
big.
in a
Let's
tray?
test them. They are.
Okay.
I mean, they're in a tray that looks like this.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So it's
Are
sort
you
of,
using your homemade compost in your mix?
we do not. I do not want weeds in the nursery. It's too much a pain in the butt. Yeah. And we want to make sure that the nutrients are high. So, yeah.
Okay.
What else to say about the nursery? Yeah, so right now, I think have we unstacked everything? So if you walk out this way, once we seed, we will stack the trays for the first 5 days, and that is our germination chamber. So it keeps that homeostasis so they don't dry out. It keeps them, not too cold, not too hot. In the summertime, we have it here in the shade. In the wintertime, we have it underneath the tables in the greenhouse where it's a little bit warmer. We want it cooler in the summer because there's a lot of lettuces and things like that that will not germinate if it's too hot. So that's been really good, but you need to make sure on day 5 to unstack it. So we don't sow on Tuesdays and Wednesdays because then it would be the weekend when the person responsible for unstacking is on her weekend and nobody else is here. So we do a lot on Thursday and Friday.
I wanted to ask you about the little beets. Now, you just put one of those cells at each emitter?
Yeah, so we do 3 lines every 12 inches. This is actually the same succession as we saw out there.
Yeah,
this
right.
So you can see how much it grew once it got into the ground. But you can also see, like, this one here has 7 plants in there.
So then do you get some large beets and some small beets?
Yeah, that's a great question I didn't talk about. So then when you've got that bunch grown up, you go through there and you're usually harvesting 1 beet per bunch. And so what I do is I go down with my fingers and I put a finger on each of the beets minus the one that I want to pull out so that you keep it in the ground.
I see.
One negative is that with direct sown beets, your soil level is more here and your beet is more like this. With this, the beets are more like this. So you will get a little bit more sun scabbing along the top. That said, you have more canopy cover, which sort of counteracts that a little bit. I have never had anybody complain to me about that little bit of scabbing because most people are peeling their beets anyway. But you can, if you don't like hold down the other ones and you'll pull like 3 or 4 of them out. Yeah, and then once you take out that biggest one, the next one will take its space and so forth. So another thing we really like about it is it's about a 4 or 5, sometimes even 6-week harvest window off of that bed, which is then great because then in my nursery, I know I need to sow beets about every 4 or 5 weeks, and then you'll have a consistent supply. Yeah. Specific one. My brain's just not working. We were having them like in our summer squash because we don't get enough rotation of those in there, and then shockingly, I was actually talking to Brett, who you probably know from Harmony. He talks a lot and he has
he's
a lot
great.
of advice. We happened to be both at Costco waiting for some pizza to it was a really long wait. So we were just there chatting about cucumber beetles and how horrible they are. And I'm like, yeah, it's so interesting because 3 of my hoop houses have really bad and 3 of them have none at all. And he's like, yeah, well, I hate telling people sprays, but I'm telling people nematodes. And I was like, nematodes? Those 3 hoop houses got sprayed with nematodes last spring and fall.
Beneficial nematodes.
Yeah.
And yet they had more.
No, they had none.
Oh, they were the
ones that had none.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
like,
Wow.
and I did it for the worm.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
They have none. And they don't have the cucumbers, but they have a ton of summer squash, and they like eggplant too. The eggplant in that house is gorgeous and clean.
Huh?
You
Okay.
know? So guess what I did? I went out and bought nematodes for the other 3 hoop houses.
Okay,
And we
good. I'm
sprayed
glad
one
I asked.
application 2 weeks ago, and the other application is in the greenhouse, in the walk-in
the
waiting to be
summer.
sprayed.
Oh,
Okay, so you
right
spray
now.
your mix, your containers, your
I'm spraying the soil in those
soil in those. Okay.
houses, and then
Because they
watering
need
them.
to be kept moist to survive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they
Yeah,
need
yeah.
to be with roots to survive as well?
I thought so. That's what I read.
Well, I mean, I'm putting it on the
Yeah.
soil and then watering with water.
Yeah.
So they go in right next
Right
to you.
there.
If you can lift up that container there. Yep, with yellow on it, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that had
Okay.
something else in it.
And
Yeah.
what about sow bugs? Do you have issues with pill bugs?
Not so much pill bugs, but there's certain kind of other detritivores like
Earwigs?
no, but a couple of different millipedes and not usually columba, which are springtails, which I guess earwigs are kind of springtail maybe.
I don't know.
But
Yeah,
anyhow,
right.
that I'm having a hard time with. And Ellie and the entomologists, the UC entomologists, they're like, these are beneficial things. They're detritivores. And I'm like, yeah, but when your soil organic matter is too much, they start eating all the plants. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, we've got them. My farm manager is like, the baby millipedes are just, and I'm like, they're a good thing. They really are.
They
We just
do
have
break
to-
down your
I know they
organic matter.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but they sort of are in the same place as the sow bugs, the pill bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.